He was the laziest boy in the village, until the day life forced him into a storm. When his father collapsed and the family bakery fell onto his shoulders, everyone laughed. He won't last 3 days. But one quote from Hazrat Ali, R.A., became the fire in his heart. The highest peaks of success are not attained but by discipline and hard work. What happened next shook the entire village and turned a weak boy into a legend. The peak that broke him and then made him unstoppable, a story on discipline from Hazrat Ali, R.A. In a quiet mountain village where the wind carried stories older than time, there lived a young man named Hamza, whose heart burned with dreams far larger than the valley he called home, but whose hands were weak with laziness, excuses, and the belief that destiny would one day lift him without effort. He grew up hearing his father repeat the golden words of Hazrat Ali, R.A. The highest peaks of success are not attained, but by those who espouse discipline and hard work. Yet Hamza would laugh it off, believing success was written, not worked for, until the day life pulled him into a storm he never expected, a storm that changed everything he thought he knew about all his tests, human weakness, and the secret power hidden inside sincere effort. It began when his father fell seriously ill, unable to work, leaving their family bakery to Hamza, who had never even woken before sunrise, let alone needed bread. And when he stepped into the dusty shop the next morning, the village elders whispered, "He won't last 3 days." And though their words pricked his pride, he knew deep inside that they were right because he had never finished anything hard in his entire life. But that night, he stood by his father's bedside and watched the man who once carried him on his shoulders struggle to breathe, and something inside him cracked open, something raw and trembling, and he made a silent promise to Allah that he would not let his family fall apart. The next morning, he woke far, stumbling in the cold darkness, his body aching with unfamiliar effort. But he whispered Hazrat Ali's words again and again, as if they were a rope pulling him upward. The highest peaks of success are not attained but by discipline and hard work. And every day, he forced himself to knead dough until his palms burned, sweep until his back stiffened, and bake until his eyes stung from heat. Yet people still mocked him. Customers still preferred other bakeries, and failures stacked on his chest like heavy stones. And one evening, exhausted beyond measure, he broke down behind the shop, crying into his hands, asking Allah why nothing was working despite his effort. But as his tears fell, an old traveler approached him, a stranger with a gentle smile who said he had been watching Hamza work, and he told him, "Success does not always come when you want it. Sometimes Allah waits until you become the person who can handle it." And he reminded Hamza of the Prophet's struggles, the years of hardship before victory, the patience of the righteous, and suddenly Hamza felt as if the entire universe shifted inside him. Inspired, he worked harder, but not with desperation, with purpose, waking up before the sun, learning new recipes, cleaning the shop until it sparkled, treating customers with warmth, and slowly, the bakery began filling with life. First a few customers, then lines, then entire families who said his bread tasted like sincerity and blessing. And soon people came from surrounding towns, saying they had heard of the boy who rebuilt his life with discipline. And one night when Hamza returned home, he found his father standing with tears in his eyes, stronger, healthier, and he hugged Hamza and said, "You climbed a mountain I never could have climbed for you." And those words became the moment Hamza realized that success was not the shop, not the money, not the recognition. It was the transformation inside him, the man he had become through effort, prayer, and trust in Allah. But Allah had yet another test waiting, a test that would shake the village and reveal the true depth of Hamza's growth. For one winter night, a fire broke out in the market, and flames spread like a beast with wings of smoke, devouring everything in its path. And when Hamza heard the screams, he rushed without thinking, joining others as they threw water, pulled burning wood away, and tried to shield the helpless, his clothes singed, his hands cut. Yet he did not stop even when the fire reached the shops, including his own bakery. But instead of despairing, he shouted for others to help save neighboring stores first. Because he remembered the traveler's words and understood that Allah's tests don't break the disciplined. They reveal them by jannah. Fire was extinguished, but the market lay in ashes, including Hamza's bakery, and while others sat crying over their losses, Hamza performed 2 rak'ah and thanked Allah for sparing lives. And then he stood up before the people and said, "We will rebuild this together." And for the next weeks, he worked harder than ever, pushing wheelbarrows, gathering wood, helping repair roofs, until the entire village was rebuilt. And seeing his dedication, the villagers helped him rebuild his bakery bigger and better than before, voluntarily, because they had seen his sincerity, they had seen the transformation discipline had carved into him. When the shop reopened, people from far towns visited not just for bread but for inspiration, telling their children, "This is the man who climbed the mountain Hazrat Ali spoke of." And one evening, when the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky gold, Hamza walked to the highest hill overlooking the village and whispered the same quote that had carried him through darkness. The highest peaks of success are not attained but by those who espouse discipline and hard work. And he realized that the true peak was not in front of him. It was inside him. And that night he wrote a message to the youth of the village, taped to the bakery door, saying, "Do not ask Allah for success if you are not willing to work for it. Effort is also a dua." And his story spread like a spark across towns, inspiring thousands to rise, work, strive, and trust Allah. For Hamza had shown that the one who disciplines his soul becomes unstoppable because Allah himself becomes his helper. And to this day, elders tell children, there was once a boy who was shaped by fire, lifted by effort, guided by dua, and transformed by the wisdom of Hazrat Ali, R.A. And they end with the same words, "Success is not a miracle. It is a climb." 1 minute viral hook for shorts/reels. He was the laziest boy in the village until the day life forced him into a storm. When his father collapsed and the family bakery fell onto his shoulders, everyone laughed. He won't last 3 days. But one quote from Hazrat Ali, R.A., became the fire in his heart. The highest peaks of success are not attained but by discipline and hard work. What happened next shook the entire village and turned a weak boy into a legend. If the story of Hamza moved your heart, then remember, every success Allah writes for you begins with one step of effort. Discipline, dua, and sincerity can turn any weakness into strength. For more powerful Islamic stories that touch the heart, awaken the soul, and bring you closer to Allah, subscribe to Deeninminute. Your one click helps us spread beneficial knowledge to the world. May Allah make your path a mountain of blessings. Ameen.